I'm going to call the June 8th, 2021 work session to order. Work session items tonight. I hope everybody's got a copy of what's on the agenda. Public comments on work session related items. Is there anybody like to make a comment on work session related items? If so, please come to the podium, state your name and address, and write it down on a sheet up there. I don't see any. Okay, we'll move on to discussion on Hollander Development Pilot MSA request for Reeds Park redevelopment. Mr. Hollander.
Thank you, Mayor. We plan to renovate Reeds Park, located on Park Avenue across from Reeds Park. The development was built in 2002. It was designed for occupancy by families. It has 48 2- and 3-bedroom units, and it's currently operating full. It also is showing some...
Can you bring the microphone up, please? Thank you.
Happy to. It's also showing some of its age, and it's time to go in and address not only refurbishing the units, but also to provide it with energy upgrades, which technology has improved on since it was built 20 years ago. We intend on combining Reeds Park with Horizon Point, which is in Fowler Township, which also needs refurbishing, and possibly even adding some new units to Horizon Point. The financing was originally from MISTA, and the financing to cover the renovations will also be from MISTA. There is no other feasible alternative available to us. Accordingly, we have to follow MISTA rules in successfully competing for that financing. That is what brings us before you today. Reeds Park has benefited from a payment in lieu of taxes agreed on back in 2002, and has operated successfully under that. Since then, we've developed, I think, some alternatives to a straight percentage of rents, and used it successfully to compete for financing in the Hillcrest project. We are asking basically for the same arrangement that we were able to obtain your approval on for Hillcrest. So that is what's before you tonight to discuss. I've prepared a sheet which breaks down how the pilot would work. And if you'd like me to go through it, I'm happy to.
Did you hit the highlights, Joe?
What's that?
Did you hit the highlights for us?
Yeah, I will. The first part of it is the calculation of the payment in lieu of taxes, and as you can see, it's based on rents minus a vacancy factor, an estimated vacancy, and then minus owner-paid utilities. And it's a percentage of that amount. So the annual shelter rents are $332,000. Payment in lieu of taxes would be 2% of that, and that would be spread among the various taxing jurisdictions within the county, proportionate to their millage. In addition to that, we would pay a pilot, a municipal service fee to the city itself, which would not be shared, equal to $200 per unit or $9,600 a year. So the city's share of the pilot would be $2,009, and then added to that a municipal service fee of $9,600, the city would receive over $11,000 a year. And that would be a minimum. Since the rents are based upon, the pilot is based on the actual rents collected, the likelihood is that if we operated at full occupancy, the pilot payment would be substantially higher. municipal service fee would start out at $200 per unit per year, and then would be pegged to a 3% inflation rate. So that would go up each year by 3%. Down at the bottom, I've indicated the maximum household incomes that would qualify for occupancy at Reeds Park. And since we originally built Reeds Park, there's been a change in the federal tax law that allows us to expand eligible households to those whose incomes don't exceed 80% of median income. The current restriction is 60%. So what that does is it opens up the units to those who are making more money, which expands the market of those eligible to live there. And I've also put down an equivalent hourly rate and a wage next to those household income limits so that you can relate it to what is paid in the area. That's it.
Do we have any questions for Mr. Hollander?
So, Mr. Hollander, I understand there's going to be some additional apartments as well.
Originally, we thought we would be able to expand. Again, working with Manistee is somewhat of a moving target. And as a result of some changes to the way they allocate tax credits, plus additional costs that we're now facing in trying to determine, establish feasibility of it. It's not going to work on that site. We're still working to try and add units. The market certainly could use them, and the community has asked for them. And we think, eventually it'll happen. Right now, of course, with lumber prices and other construction materials at costs that none of us can figure out, I suspect that nothing is feasible if we were trying to do it today. But as has been said, this too shall pass. I've been doing this for over 40 years, running roadblocks like this from time to time. I'm always an optimist, and I think that eventually we'll get there.
Mr. Hollander, I have a couple of questions for you. Do you have a waiting list over there right now at Reeds Park?
Yes, we do. I can't give you the exact numbers, but we've operated at full occupancy for probably the last 4 to 5 years.
What are you going to do with anyone who's displaced during this renovation?
It's, we estimate that some of the units will require kind of renovations where it's best for the tenants to leave the units for a few days. We've done half a dozen projects like this over the last few years, and typically with this type of renovation, they're gone for 3 to 5 days. We take responsibility for moving their belongings. We take responsibility for finding a place for them to stay, paying for it, typically a local motel, and we also cover meals. So the tenant has no out-of-pocket expense, and there's no permanent displacement.
Are the rents increased after the renovation?
Not because of the renovation. They may increase just because the income levels have gone up and expenses go up. And if our rents are pegged to household income, but it's too complicated to explain here. I can explain it to you personally a lot easier. But essentially, we have bands of affordability, and the top band would be 80%. So you take the household income at 80% in the area, you multiply that by 30%, divide it by 12, and that becomes your maximum rent, including utilities. So we would have one set of rents for the band between, say, 70% and 80%. We'd have another band of rents, for example, between 60 and 70%. It can all be laid out. In fact, I can probably give you I brought the income limit sheet with me, and I'll leave it with you before I go. But the law requires that we maintain an average of 60%. Okay, so while we can go to 80%, we still have to have an average for the entire development of 60%. And in order to do that, for those rents that are over 60%, for those households that we admit that are, say, at the 70% or 80% level, we have to offset that by offering units at, say, 30% and 40%. So right now, our feasibility shows that 5 units are targeted to those at 30% of area median income, which is below $400. Right? So it's a balancing act, and we have to keep it at 60 or below during the entire compliance period, which in this case is going to be probably 30 years, possibly 45 years, depending upon financing restrictions.
Mr. Hollander, when would you, if we pass this, when would you expect to start working on it?
You're not going to hold me to what I said in answer to that question with Hillcrest 3 years ago, are you?
I'm curious.
Well, we would submit in October, probably, and hopefully Michigan would respond within 90 days, which historically they have, although the April 1st round of this year, they still haven't responded, and we're at the end of the 5th month. So we would know, presumably by the end of the year, whether we got the funds.
Okay.
It then takes at least 6 months, because that's when we design the project, or we go out and we finalize our cost estimates. But since this financing is going to be a little different, instead of a 1 year or year and a half, which it took to close Hillcrest, this will close much quicker. So this probably would allow us to start construction next summer.
One of the interesting things that I have discovered in the last couple of weeks is that many of our hotels in the area are not accepting reservations for people that live within the zip code of 49660. Probably because of COVID, I'm thinking that they rented those rooms out, and there's been some, disturbances, and it's causing a lot of extra work to clean up the rooms, et cetera, et cetera. So I think if you're going to do something like that, you might have to take a proactive step and talk to some of these hotels about what you're doing.
Well, in the past, that's a good point. But in the past, and particularly if the renovation work is going to start during the shoulder season or after, when the tourists are not here, the motels are eager for our business. And we'll only be doing probably 1 hallway at a time. There are 4 units in each hallway. So we're not going to have to place 48 households at a time. It'll only be 4 to 8 households at a time, probably just 4.
Thank you.
I've got more of a suggestion, but I saw that part of the renovation is to have some additional common space. Is that still part of the plan?
If we can afford it, yes.
Okay. So part of my suggestion would be, as you're looking for common space, also look outside, especially what we learned over COVID, to have covered seating areas with tables and things like that outdoors. Certainly may be something that you would want to build into your future plans. Because I know that some of your residents have commented that there was a limited amount of outdoor seating at your facilities. And they would have liked to have seen more, especially during COVID.
That's a good suggestion. I would point out that when we built Reed's Park, we made a donation to the city of $30,000, which was used to renovate Reed's Park. And that was done with a charrette by children, by the way, to come up with the design and the kind of equipment that they wanted. But it might be more appropriate to provide that kind of shelter, which is right across the street. That way, the residents of Reed's Park probably will get first dibs on it because they're so close to it, but it would also be available to the public and maybe attract more use of Reed's Park.
Thank you.
Mr. Hollander, you may have asked this, and I apologize if you did, but do you currently have a pilot that has not expired?
Yes, our pilot is based on what we originally developed, basically.
I remember, and when did that expire?
It's still in operation.
It
So-
doesn't expire?
It stays in place as long as Mishta has an interest in the property. as
I
the
understand,
landlord.
okay. For some reason, I thought it was a 20-year pilot, I missed something
I don't believe so.
there. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Does anybody have any objections to looking at? I believe this would be a new pilot. Does it take the place of the old one?
It would be a pilot that would go into effect if we get financing and when we basically either start construction or finish it. And then we wouldn't necessarily want this to go into effect before then. I'm not sure that the city, and it's the city attorney's call on this, but whether it would be appropriate to put this into effect right away.
Is there an expiration date on this one?
It would probably be the same in terms of as long as Michigan has an interest, because as the lender, they want to be able to rely upon it if they ever had to take back the project in foreclosure or something like that. They require that. I mean, every development across the state which they finance today has that kind of string attached to it. We don't expect to get any soft financing for this, which usually adds 15 years to that period of time that they have an interest. So it could be as short as 15, it could be, I mean, it's probably going to be 30 years because that's what they hold us to.
Does anybody have any questions? Any more questions? Anybody have any objections or concerns about looking into the pilot?
I don't have any objections to looking at it, take a look at it. There was one point in there talked about that they could move some to market rate and make it equivalent to the taxes. I thought that was interesting. It's something we should pursue or consider. Do we get the full tax amount basically on market rate apartments? But I'm not opposed to having that discussion.
Just curious, Joe. No, Mr. Hollander, when you talk in your letter, you talk 3 to 5 days during when the units are being redeveloped. Where are you going to move the people to? Do you have a place in mind, or how do you do that?
Well, I think, I mean, what we've done in the past, and we've done this a lot, is we use local motels. And we pay for it.
Just curious.
We pay for it.
So it's no expense to the residents?
No expense at all. We even cover moving everything on site and protecting it.
Anybody else have any questions?
I just have one quick question, and I might be confusing myself on this, just because I don't know too much about it. If you already have a pilot for the whole entire building, it's the life of it, why wouldn't those estimated gross rent be in that other one? Why would it be in this one too? Like, why would there be two? If you're not changing anything, you're just adding, updates and stuff, why the two? Am I confused? Are you understanding what I'm saying?
Maybe.
Like, I'm just saying it cleared up. Okay, so if you already have a pilot in place for the whole entire, all 48 units, and it's there for the life of the duration, you've already given us this way back whenever you applied for that. So why would these estimates of rents be included in this one? Why would it be different?
Couple of points. I don't know if this will answer everything, but first of all, with the change in the tax law, we're able to generate more income. We are presently operating with a maximum household income of 60%, which means that the rents cannot exceed 30% of 60% of every median income. At the same time, we also have 5 units at least that are at 30% of our median income. So our average is well below 60% of every median income. What the tax law change allows us to do is to bring the average up to 60%. So what that presents an opportunity to generate more income under the pilot for all the taxing jurisdictions, but it also allows us the opportunity to follow what was done with Hillcrest, which puts more money in the city's pocket. Okay, and so that's really for the request. The other reason is that we're dealing with Mishna, and if we go back to them with the original pilot, and we say, we want you to make a brand new loan to us that's going to be, for the two projects, that will exceed $4 million, based on something that was passed 20 years ago, they're likely to pick it apart and say, we want this change, we want that change. That's what's happened to us in a couple of other projects that we've renovated.
Okay, I understand that, but the payment that you said we would get is, I think it was like 11,000.
Right.
So that's in place of the one that we already have?
You're currently getting about $1,200, I think. Is that right?
Okay, so the last one will be dissolved then, and this will be a new one.
Right,
So there'll only be one pilot instead of two.
right.
Okay.
Anybody else? Hearing none. Mr. Hollander, thank you. Appreciate your time. Okay, Mr. Taylor, you have everything you need?
I do.
Thank you. We'll move on to discussion on staff liaison to Board of Commissioners. Mr. Taylor.
Yeah, this was added to your work session at the request of the chair and vice chair of the Parks Commission. They're concerned, they looked at the city charter and city ordinance, and they're of the opinion that the Parks Commission reports directly to the city council and not through staff. So they wanted that, we talked with them and we got an opinion from the city attorney that did not support their position, and they asked that they be able to bring this to council for a discussion. So hopefully they're here today and can lead the discussion.
Anybody want to lead the discussion? Would you please tell your name and address?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Thomas Oley, 376 6th Street. I'm the vice chair of the Manistee Parks Commission. I want to actually thank the council members that got a hold of us after we brought up this issue. Councilmember Bachman, Beaton, and Grabowski. Thank you. You guys got a hold of us, contacted us, and talked through a lot of issues we're having. As most of us know, our park system is kind of in disarray. We kind of see it in our park system. It's kind of a sad state of affairs, and the new Parks Commission really wants to take this into their hands and kind of make the parks a better place in Manistee. And this is not a reflection on anyone that works in the park system. This is just a system that is broken currently. The guys that work in the park system are doing a great job. They're just undermanned, understaffed, underpaid. Not enough money going in to the park system itself. So we're looking at trying to do better within the city, but we're trying to start at a basic foundational level. And when the staff liaison issue came up, it was the perfect vehicle to start at that basic foundational level. So the issue we had as the Parks Commission stemmed from a single issue, and that's where this arose. Tim O'Connor is the chair of the Parks Commission, and he is on a two-person subcommittee right now. His idea is to bring a reservation system into the Manistee City Park system, being that we can create revenue by renting out places within the system, such as Lions Pavilion. So this is the project he's working on, and he's working with Mr. McCool at DPW. Tim and the other person wanted to come to a work session and have an interactive work session with all of City Council. And what we view as a work session is just this, an interaction back and forth, something you don't get in a regular City Council session. So Tim went through the proper channels through Kelly McColl and requested a work session with yourselves. We believe that all commissions and all boards are your advisors. That's what it states in all city charters and ordinances, is we are your advisors directly. You appoint us, we report to you. So when Tim O'Connor made this request through Kelly, we didn't hear back for over a week. We didn't know what was happening. I contacted Kelly, and at that point, it was stated that we should have known that we have a staff liaison, Mr. McCool from DPW, and he suggested that that session would be canceled because we weren't ready, Tim wasn't ready. And that Jeff would, Mr. McCool would let Mr. Taylor know when we were ready. And we got to thinking about this. It presented a conflict of interest if you really think about it, because Mr. McCullough has budget in his hands. He has the ability to basically then say yay or nay to a project he doesn't like. So then we went to Mr. Taylor, and Mr. Taylor went to the city attorney, and the city attorney basically said, yes, you can appoint a staff liaison, but within the city attorney's letter itself, it said you can appoint a staff liaison to yourself, meaning to the city manager. So when we read that opinion, we looked at that and said, there's nothing in there that says that a staff liaison should be appointed between the commission and to yourselves. And that is our position, is we don't believe a staff liaison could or should be appointed, and if it is appointed, if you decide that that is the actual case that you want to do, that staff liaison shouldn't have a conflict of interest, as DPW has to Parks Commission when it comes to projects.
It seems to me that it's more a matter of procedure than a conflict of interest and what's expected of the staff liaison. I speak from experience. I spent 19 years as a staff liaison with the Harbor Commission, and I know how that worked with Harbor Commission. Procedurally, it would seem to me that the Parks Commission would say to Jeff McCullough, or the staff liaison who may have been Nikki or whoever, I don't know what it is, we would like to make an agenda with the city council and talk about this. And that staff liaison would take that to the city manager, and it would end up on the agenda, unless the city manager said no.
Correct.
If the city manager said no, I'd expect the city manager to come to the Parks Commission, explain why, and there'd be open line of communication. Maybe there's some miscommunication on what's expected of the staff liaison, but I don't think it would be appropriate for the staff liaison to cancel that meeting without the city manager saying, we're not putting it on the agenda. I don't know that the staff liaison had that kind of authority when the commission asked that. When the Parks Commission asked for an agenda, I don't believe the city staff liaison had the authority to say no. I certainly didn't as liaison. So rather than just say it's a conflict of interest, I think Jeff McCullough is certainly invested in the Parks Commission. I mean, wholly invested in the Parks Commission and the parks. And to say that we would sit here and expect us to say that Jeff is a conflict of interest would probably be asking too much. But I think it would be fair to define what that role is, either through the city manager's office or through the city council, to tell us what our expectations of him are as that staff liaison. I don't believe that the staff liaison has overruling authority over any of the commissions that we served on as a staff liaison. I don't think that was ever anybody's intention. Maybe other council members see it differently, but the staff liaison is basically a pipeline to say, these are the ideas, we all talk about them. If the commission, the Parks Commission says, as a group, we vote on it, and as the majority of the group says, we'd like to do this and move forward, Jeff, can you take that to city council, or can you take that to city manager? I think that's appropriate, but I don't think it's appropriate to say no.
Correct.
So maybe the city manager sees that differently than I do, but that was my experience as a staff liaison of the Harbor Commission, and I don't think that's unrealistic at all of a staff liaison. But
If I could interject, what happened was there was a request made to have this on a work session. And my first reaction was to get a hold of Jeff and find out what the background was and get some more information on it. And he told me that in his opinion it wasn't ready to go. It hadn't been fully vetted by the entire Parks Commission board. And he didn't think it was appropriate at that time to bring it to council until there was further work done. It was more of an idea and without a lot of not being fleshed out. So that's the reason I made the decision that there was not a consensus of the entire Parks Commission to bring it forward for discussion because it wasn't complete in Jeff's estimation.
which is different than what the memo says. The memo says that Jeff unilaterally canceled it without any discussion. Basically what it sounds like anyway. That's where I read it.
And then,
He did it on his own.
I actually have an actual email if you'd like to read
But
it.
having that discussion though, something as broad as that, I would think it would require some city council input. I don't think the Parks Commission can just say, we're setting up a reservation system without city council saying it's a good idea. So maybe in that particular case, we might want to weigh in on it, but I just think procedure is an issue and how procedures are working and what the expectation of liaison is and what the liaison can and cannot do. But if the city manager's canceling it, good for you, you certainly have the authority to do that. But somehow that message has to get back. And I think when something as serious as that, the city manager himself should go to the Parks Commission and sit down and say, I canceled that meeting because of X, Y, and Z. In order to get it on the agenda, you have to do A, B, and C. But it doesn't seem like any of that happened.
And, well, we did have a meeting, virtual meeting with the chair and vice chair to talk through the situation, Jeff and I did. And, you know, explained why, and that it wasn't going to be on the agenda. And then talk, you know, through their position that their read of the ordinance and the bylaws was that they were a direct report to the council and not through a liaison.
It just feels like one small event is blown into a whole bigger deal that doesn't need to be that big. We should be able to fix it here rather than spread it all the way up to here. We should be able to fix it at the staff level and what the expectations are rather than a legal opinion and somebody wrote to who or where.
Well, I took the step of a legal opinion just to get a neutral, disinterested third party to take a look and offer us an opinion.
I have a question. Why do we even need a liaison? Why can't they just come to you directly? Like, I don't understand. Like, I'm on a board and commission. I don't even know what it is. We've never met. I don't know what they do, anything. So why can't they come to us like once a month or once every 3 months and, you know, say, hey, this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing. Why do we need a middleman to do that? Like, I think that there's way too many people involved, and it's the same people involved, and nothing's getting done. Like,
Well, I think the answer is that if they're going to come to me with all their ideas, I don't run the parks. I don't know if it's a good idea, it has legs, I don't know. And that's why I think it's very important to have a subject matter expert, Jeff, in this case, because he is responsible for the parks through the DPW, to work with the board on that, on those issues.
I think too, Ted, that liaison does a lot of stuff that you don't even need to know. And a really good example was the Frisbee golf. Parks Commission hasn't talked about Frisbee golf, and I got the impression that they met with Jeff and Nikki, and they found out what the parks could do for them, what DPW could do. They could lay cement, they could clear stuff, they did a lot of stuff. They didn't come to city council until all those little details have been handed out, and didn't need to go to the city manager until then. I mean, clearly our city manager has got a lot on his plate, and that's what we delegate stuff to
well, I
staff to do.
understand that, but I mean, why is it, no disrespect to you, but why is he the final say of, yeah, that's a good idea?
Absolutely correct. You shouldn't be. That's what we're talking about right now. You should not be.
And that's why we,
But not everything needs to go to that level.
And he's not the final say, as I said. When the request was made, I asked Jeff for some background on it and what they were trying to accomplish. He said they've got an idea, they don't have it really fleshed out, a lot of details. And in Jeff's estimation, he didn't feel it was ready to go in front of council for discussion because, number one, there wasn't a lot of details, and number two, it wasn't consensus of the board, the Parks Commission, rather than it was just two people. So he was looking for a little bit more detail and a little bit more buy-in from the entire Parks Commission.
But even without this situation that we're talking about, can't they just bring something up and Jeff can have his opinion and we can all have our opinion? Like, they don't. How many committees do we have that are actually active in doing something so it's not overloading?
We got the Tree Commission, we got the Planning Commission, we got the Parks Commission, we got the Harbor Commission. I'm probably missing a few more.
MRA.
So what's going to happen is council is going to be, in effect, charged with administering all of those commissions, and then you're going to have to get into the minutia and the budget details and all of that. I think council has better things to do with
I
their
understand
time.
what you're saying, but I think it's still not setting well with people the way that everything has been run, and people are being discouraged from even being on committees. That's why you have the same people year after year and nothing's getting?
I'm not getting that impression. In fact, we talked about it today at our staff meeting on how few vacancies there are currently on our boards and commission. When I first got here, we had a long laundry list of vacancies, and we've done a very good job, and I can say staff is ultimately responsible. I think there's more buy-in from the community, and we have very few vacancies on our commissions. So I think, I haven't heard that people are unhappy other than the two individuals from the park commission. No
That's
other
unfair.
commissions.
I would like to jump in at some point. I think it's really important that the different committees or commissions that we have, that they feel comfortable coming to us. I want to see them. I personally want them to interact with city council. The only way I can interact with them is to try to attend one of their meetings, and of course this past year has been terrible. You have to sit in front of your computer every day looking at videos of different meetings like the DDA and et cetera. I want to know what's going on, and it's refreshing to get the undiluted opinion, say for example, of the Parks Commission, to come forward and, because they're interacting with the public and they're giving us information. We need to hear that. So I think if they want to have a work session with us from time to time, how would that be any different than one of us asking you to put it on the work session? Because we can come and we can ask the city manager to put something on a work session for us to discuss. So I don't really see that there would be much difference between them. So I would really like you to reconsider how we do manage this, because I want this available to anybody who volunteers their time, they don't get paid for it, they're passionate about what they do. We want to see them, we want to help them, we want to hear from them.
I think one of the important parts for me in this whole discussion is that it didn't represent the entire Parks Commission. I think the entire Parks Commission, it has to speak as a single voice, not one or two. I mean, they have to discuss it, have some kind of a vote and say, yeah, we all agree this is the project we want to push. If that's the case, then that gives it more weight to go and say you want to bring to city council. I don't think we can have work sessions on every one or two people on a council, on a committee want to have a work session with us. But if the Parks Commission or the Harbor Commission, I mean, I remember we were going to build a new marina building. We met for months before we came to city council to talk about how we're going to do that, but we came as a single voice, not as a fragmented group. So I think that's an important piece of what you presented tonight, where there's only two people.
Well, it'd be nice to at least hear from them on a regular basis. I mean, it's something that, if, the Harbor Commission comes and they give us a report. I mean, it's usually to bring us up to speed what's going on. It would be nice if we did that with everybody. And I would just like it, I personally would.
We do, don't we?
Yeah.
Don't all committees, committees have a report? Any other report?
Yes, they do.
Well, if we could hear more, I mean, the parks is a big deal because, we have a limited season where we're actually looking at the ground. That's not covered with snow. So,
Yeah, I agree, but they brought up the disc golf when it was an important issue, outside of your agenda item, right? So if they have stuff like that, I think we would embrace those meetings and embrace those conversations when they want to have them. But it's got to be a consensus. It's got to be the Parks Commission has to speak as a single voice rather than 2 and 5. In my opinion.
I can just share with you my time on the Parks Commission. I was on the Parks Commission for a few years. We never came to council until we actually had something to present to council. And a good example of that would have been Adopt a Park. When we came to council to present Adopt a Park, everything was in order, and now we have Adopt a Park. But a lot of discussion about Adopt a Park was held in those meetings. I think a process is something we need to look at. How do we get from point A to point B? What is that process? And maybe Mr. Taylor can help with that. Come up with some ways that we get from point A to point B with the Parks Commission. But I think coming to council, I think it's important to have a program that is ready to go, the funding is figured out, everything is in place, and then presented to council to adopt. That does not mean, I'm not saying that you can't come to council and talk about plans, but it's really nice if you come to council with everything in order and ready to go. And that's what we did back when I was on the Parks Commission, and we were able to accomplish a lot. So maybe the process needs to be looked at.
You know,
Well, I
Mayor,
also want them to be able to come to us when they have a problem, or they see an issue. I don't want them, they're stymied if they can't, the only thing they can do is to come to you with, here's a new program we're going to institute. I think it's, they have to have it both ways. If they're feeling frustrated and they're trying to get something done and they need help and they want to talk to us, they should be allowed to.
Well, and they're here tonight to discuss the problem, so there is an avenue for that.
every agenda has an option for citizen comment, so anytime if they felt they weren't getting what they needed, they could come to any council meeting and speak publicly on an item. Or even unrelated, citizen comment, we wouldn't throw them out, we're a public body, we're open to the public, they could speak.
So if these committees if everybody on the committee agreed it was something they wanted to bring to council, can't they just, if everybody's in agreement or the majority is in agreement, can't they just bring it to you and just
Well,
remove the?
I prefer them going through the staff liaison, and he can do the agenda report, get it on the agenda, and to do all that structural work we need.
Well, I think that's the problem, is they don't want to go through the liaison, they just want to, well, I don't understand if they're in consensus, why they just can't bring it to you. If it's ready to go on the agenda, why can't they bring it to you? Or why can't they bring it to one of us and we say, hey, put it on the agenda?
Right, and there's, as an example, if you put it on a regular agenda, there's a process of putting together an informational packet, doing a memo, doing what we call our agenda report, so it can be put on the agenda. So there's a lot of work there to do.
So they can bring it up to a work session.
They could, but, again, I would suggest to council that if they have something that there is consensus amongst that particular board or commission in having a desire to put it on the agenda, then they can just work through their liaison, and the liaison will get it on the agenda.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, that's what they're having a problem with, is the liaison. Am I wrong? Or-
Well, the
You're
thing,
not wrong.
the issue is, it was determined that there wasn't a consensus of the entire board and commission to bring it to council. And so we deemed it not complete for that one reason being that. The other is they hadn't really fleshed out the whole concept.
I understand that, but if there's already friction between the two, how do you expect to resolve it if you just keep saying, well, just go to the liaison here when you have a consensus? There's already friction between them, so it's not going to go as kosher as you want it to. So I don't understand why, if they've got stuff ready to go, why they can't bring it on a work session, and then we say, hey, you gotta keep going forward with it. Isn't that the simplest route to get to where you want to be?
It sounds simple, but then if it's only...
Well, I guess I'm confused on why it's not simple, because you're adding another person, so.
Well, to make sure that the process is being followed, that there is a consensus. I mean, we could, in theory, someone from the Harbor Commission could approach me and say, I want to be on the agenda to push this idea. And there's been no discussion at the Harbor Commission, there has been no consensus, and so we got one individual
And you
speaking.
say no, that's what I just said. If they have a consensus, why can't they?
They don't have, in this particular case.
I'm not even
they-
talking about this situation, because I don't even know what it is. I'm just talking in general. If they have a consensus moving forward, why they just can't bring it to you and get on the agenda? It cuts out a whole person, it cuts out a ton of time, it cuts out bad blood between whatever's going on, and it gets you to where you want to be. Why is that difficult?
Jermaine, could I try to answer?
Yeah, it's-
I worked for the Department of Defense for 34 years. I ran parks. The Department of Defense has lots and lots of boards and oversights. Okay. Part of the reason is that you want to have a subject matter expert to be able to take and view and value and to somewhat screen the processes. So it is not individuals that are making issues, okay? I had a bad meal at the restaurant or at the officers club. That's not a board issue, okay? That's something different. I think the vetting process has to go through a subject matter expert. If If it's the Harbor Commission, it needs to be public safety. If it's Parks and Recreation, it needs
But
to
I'm
be.
not talking about it if an individual has a problem. I literally
Well,
said it's a consensus.
I grant it. Now, when a board acts and they make a motion and that motion is processed, it is not what then that's different. Then that comes to you as a motion from the board saying that this is something that they want and they have a package and a program.
And it comes through whoever that liaison is.
So the other side, and again, and it's important to have a procedure that makes sure that all the legal aspects, all the secondary issues, and a good example is I've worked in, on our military bases about fees and charges for things like parks and programs. It is not very simple. One of the things they talked about is Lion Parks. Well, Lion Park was built and donated to the city with certain stipulations. Are you aware of those stipulations? I'm just asking.
You asking me?
Yeah.
Yes, I am aware.
What are the stipulations that the Lions Club made when they donated the property to the city?
That is for everybody's use.
And
I'm not sure what you're getting at, sir.
there were no fees associated when the Lions Club gave that property to the city. It was without fee.
Okay.
So, not that means anything, it's just that those are why subject matter experts need to be involved so that all the information can be compiled and put appropriately together. I don't even think it's a bad idea. I think scheduling, and I've mentioned this before, we have a very loose system with Lions Park. I get probably more calls than anybody on Lions Park for wanting to use it for events. And we have a system that's basically an honor system unless you go through the city with a special permit. Other than that, it's an honor system. That's not as clean as you would like it to have, right? We've been very fortunate so far that we've never had a whole lot of problems, but it is challenging sometimes. When you have 3 or 4 people wanting the same place at the same time, and they all say that I put my name up on the board. So I get it, we have to refine that process. But how it's done needs to be a little bit more technical. But I'm getting off track. Liaisons are important to the boards.
I
So-
understand that,
so they
but clearly
connect.
you're gonna have to pick another liaison because it's not working between.
Well, but again, I think it's an isolated incident. I don't think we changed all of our procedures because of an incident where a process, and again, not knowing all the details, I don't want to say who was right or wrong, but the point is that, the process would have been for the Parks Commission to make a motion, and that motion to come forward. But the difference is that, this is a good example, how easy it is to communicate with the city council. You write a letter. I read your letters. I read everyone's views. I got a lot of information. It made me think that maybe one of our procedures is to maybe have access to minutes of other commission meetings so that we're a little bit more abreast of what happened at commissions. Again, it may be a little extra reading criteria, but it does give us an opportunity to be a little bit more educated on some of the commissions outside of our own. And again, they may be available, but I honestly, I don't see them in a packet like I would, that's what I focus on is the packet that I get for a meeting, and I read that and digest the information. Or when letters come to city council, then obviously those are read. The fact that any person can come to any council meeting and make a comment on the municipal processes and functions where they think are good, bad, and indifferent, they can make those and voice those opinions. Now, personal opinion is I think that your current Parks Commission are doing fabulous work. And you have my wholehearted support because you're enthusiastic, you have people that have, lit a spark under people. A good example is the work that Kelly Greedy has done over the last couple of months. again, like I said, that spark turns into a blaze of action. And again, I commend the Parks Commission for being able to be that proactive. But I don't think that it's necessary to change all of our processes and requirements. I think the current processes have worked for many years, and I think they still can, with personalities being separated from the issues.
Do you think we need to identify that process and have it ready?
If it's not already, it sounded like when I was reading the bylaws, it sounded like it was fairly clear, but maybe having something on with when a park commission has something that they want to have and they vote on it as a commission, that it does have a way of being able to be formally presented at least in minutes or in some form to the council for their review, and then we would then decide whether or not it's something that we want to proceed with, focusing on.
And then,
I would only make one change to that, and that is, I think it's important that, I don't think it's an issue for me personally, that, say for example, Jeff McCool, I think you also attend all the park commission meetings, so they have access to your liaison. He's also giving them advice as to what can and cannot be done. So they're getting that information piece. When they do have something and they vote on it and they want to take it to council, instead of Jeff having to do that, I think it's the responsibility of the chairperson to bring it to city council and get it on the calendar for us to discuss. I think that would be a little bit simpler, makes everybody feel like they're more equitable, and that we could move forward.
Do you have an opinion, since we're talking about you?
Well, it's not an opinion, but the way that it works is a staff liaison and all us department heads are assigned to various different commissions, groups, boards. We provide information, we provide background, and we also, so we're there to try to implement, their goals and objectives. But then they also are there to provide feedback to us in the different departments. And so there's a very beneficial relationship both ways. You have to understand that I actually support the topic that Mr. Olay brought up. I support that topic. I'm on the committee. I've actually brought it to the Parks Commission several years ago and said, I don't know if the mayor was on the commission at that time, but I said, how can we figure this out? And we couldn't get through all the details to make sure that we could implement that effectively. So when the current Parks chairman brought it up, I said, absolutely, let's get working on this, because I think there's some very good things, and I think there's some good commerce that can come to the community as a whole. We formed a subcommittee, and we had one meeting with 2 of the 3 people on that subcommittee. And that was actually the chairman and myself. He and I met after that, and we discussed it a little bit further, and I said, we need to write down an outline of what this program would be, and then I think that'll help flesh out a bunch of the details and ideas. Let's answer that. When we're ready, let's take it to the Parks Commission, get their approval. The very next step we need to do is meet with Councilman Szymanski, because one of the targeted places was the Lions Pavilion, and I know that I didn't know that there were those restrictions, but we wanted to make sure that they were aware of it, so we didn't have a bunch of public backlash when we came to City Council. And then, based on that conversation, then when we're ready, let's take it to City Council. That's been the way that every city manager I've worked for has wanted it, make sure we're complete and bring it forward. If the Parks Commission would have voted to bring this forward as a whole, I would not be able to stop that. Thad, I'm assuming Thad would put that on the agenda. The staff liaison creates that agenda item for you, provides all the background, and then you know that every one of us have a memo that we attach and we give our opinions. So even if I didn't agree with the concept, I could simply explain that in my memo and I could explain why, but it would still come before council. In this instance, it wasn't a Parks Commission voted item, and Thad said, what's going on? So I said, well, we've only had a couple meetings. We haven't gone through vetting it all out. I don't think it's ready. That was my opinion. Thad made a decision. So I don't think there's animosity. I don't think there's a bad working relationship. I think we're doing good and we're getting much better at it. And Councilman Szymanski is absolutely correct. We got a lot of energy on the parks. And so they're doing some good things and we're going to be bringing stuff to you in the future. So personally, I don't think it's a broke system.
Okay.
In reference to, was I on the committee back then? Yes, I remember all that. And the reason it didn't go forward, because there wasn't a consensus. Nobody could seem to come to an agreement on how it should move forward and how it should be done. And it just kind of died.
I'd agree with that. I was on the Parks Commission as well at that time.
Yep. Remember that? Yep.
I think Mr. McCool summed that up very well. I think this is every bit as much an issue of communication as anything. I think probably have we heard from maybe in a weekly report that they wanted on the agenda and the city manager told them no. Probably all of us probably would have went away. We might have been informed. He could have told us why. We could have said, well, we'd like to hear about it. We could have pulled him back. This is 98.5% an issue of communication and the rest of it's personality. I don't think our system is broken. I think our liaison system is working really well. I have for years. They need to know what their job is. They need to know what the expectation of the city manager is. And I think there needs to be communication up and down the chain of command. So that's my nickel word.
How about we close to getting the committee together so they can make a decision here?
Well, I think there's an agreement that there is a huge miscommunication problem. And like I've reiterated many times to Mr. McCullough, it's not a personality thing at all. We respect him. I tell him personally it's awesome to have him at our meetings. It's so helpful. We're all fired up. DPW, Parks Commission. We do see a broken system. We see these small details that are broken that just need to be rectified and clarified. The two things that I see when listening to City Council is, I think Tim O'Connor, he's the chair, he's the one that came up with the reservation system, and he had one other person on that subcommittee, along with Jeff. I don't know if you'd consider Jeff part of that subcommittee, but he was definitely helping with the subcommittee. I think subcommittee has to involve only those commission members. So they worked out the ideas, and Tim at a certain point with his subcommittee felt that he wanted to come to City Council during a work session, and I think that's where the miscommunication is going on. I think in his mind, as well as in mine and a few other members of the commission, a work session is an informal meeting of City Council where someone can come before you all and ask your opinion on things, ask your input to take an idea and to take it to another level, not to come to you in a work session with a final product. Tim wanted to schedule that work session to come before you with that idea mostly fleshed out, but knowing if you as City Council liked that idea, would want that idea to go forward, and then finally come to you with a finished product at some point, along with Mr. McCool. So I think that's where one of the communication issues is happening. The other stance, which I don't think is getting talked enough about, and there is a majority opinion on the Parks Commission, on our new iteration of the Parks Commission, 4 out of 7 of us have confirmed that we believe that there is a conflict of interest if DPW is the staff liaison. And it's nothing against Mr. McCullough, it's just the fact that that staff liaison would have the power now or in the future, if he did not or she did not like an idea, to basically say, yeah, I'm going to recommend to city manager that we don't go forward. We don't know the reason why it didn't go forward. That would be all left into DPW or whoever that staff liaison would be for a board or commission. So that's where we see the conflict of interest. We do agree that a board and commission should have a staff liaison to help us through all these details that us community members who are volunteering don't know about. We don't know the procedures. We don't know the details. We need help. We want to know what work sessions are. We want to know how to come to you as City Council. So that, I believe, is where, yes, we would love, and other boards and commissions would love a staff liaison, but it has to be the right staff liaison and not one with the power to deny us as boards and commission and community members to come before you all and give you guys our idea.
Well, that's why I think it would be important to, when you get into it, people are, they're going to get into conflicts. So if the board decides that they want to bring an issue to City Council and they have a majority vote on it, and your staff liaison does not agree with it, I think this chair should still be allowed to go to the manager and say, we want this on the agenda. Here's the minutes, we voted on it, this is what we want. And then all of us can hear it at the same time.
Staff liaison should not have the authority to say you can't take it to city council. Period. They don't have that authority, do they, Thad?
No, they don't, because it's properly voted on,
Exactly.
approved.
They can weigh in appropriately and say, on this project, these are the pros and cons, and I don't support it because their opinion great, their staff liaison, they got the resource, they got the budget. But they don't, I think maybe somebody was, they can't say to the Parks Committee, you voted, but we're not taking it to city council. They can't do it.
No.
If they did, they're woefully overstepping their bounds.
You receive a copy of the minutes anyway, don't you, Mr. Taylor?
Yeah, I'm usually on the email string.
Sure. How do you want to move forward, Council?
Well, I think we ought to ask this gentleman who came forward on behalf of the parks, how would you like to move forward? Are you feeling better about it? Do you think we've aired the issue enough so that we know which way will work best for you?
I think my personal belief, and I think I can speak on behalf of the chair and a few of the other members, that we just want that communication to begin. It wasn't beginning, and we see that in the past with past parks commissions where they've been stalled out or haven't been able to proceed for whatever reasons, and we really want to change that, and I think this is an initial first step that I'm very happy with. Just being able to talk to city council and to hear feedback. The feedback is so vital that we feel we don't get enough of.
And we're going to do the same one.
I would expect the city manager to spread it to all the staff liaisons, not what the expectation is. And I don't think that'd be a surprise to anybody, to be honest with you, if it's voted on by the commission.
But I think,
I don't think it'd be a surprise.
but I do think it's important that the liaison be the subject matter expert, and you would want nobody less than the person responsible for the parks to be your liaison. Personalities aside, that's an appropriate person. It doesn't have the authority or the knowledge in order to be a productive member of that process if they're not the person that has the knowledge that you're really looking for.
I agree completely. Like I said, I think there's two routes that you could go with city council. That's the one route where you have a legitimate expert such as Jeff when it comes to park systems, or you have a staff liaison be the person of formality, being the person to let us know how we go about these, not necessarily if the idea is good or not. And I think that's where that discussion has to come into play. Like I said, like if the staff liaison is a member or person of knowledge and has the power to give his opinion on whether that project is valid or not, based on whatever reason, that's where the discussion has to lay. That's the conflict of interest that we do see with that scenario.
But I would tell you that anybody who has been put into the position of liaison is going to have an opinion, and it may not be the same as yours.
Right.
So it's no difference from the subject matter expert to me being on your council. I may not agree or disagree, but it's still only one person's opinion. You still have a process to fall back on to give you justice.
Anybody else?
Are there any other issues that we should know about, thought you here?
Yes, but we want to, we as a commission right now, like I said, I firmly believe we have a majority of our commission right now, with the new iteration, with the new members that believe this. We've been in communication. We believe there are lots of problems. But we have to start somewhere. We have to start at a basic foundation like this. This is the first thing we ran into, and we needed to communicate it. When we realized there were communication issues, we realized, how can we go about with any idea or any project when there's just basic communication issues? And we wanted to come before you, as a commission. I think we are tonight as a unified commission coming before you with our concerns and suggestions.
Tom, do you have an understanding of how we have to?
Oh, 100%. 100%. And that is your
talk
work.
with the manager and make sure everything's lined up for yourselves.
100%. And we're doing this not for ourselves in the moment. We're doing this for every future person that wants to volunteer their time for a board and commission. And like I believe Mr. Taylor said, we saw, 4 members apply for the Parks Commission this rotation. People are on fire in Manistee right now. They see that potential. They want to get involved. And we want to set up that process so everyone can succeed in that process, not fail Or what we saw in the past is people quit out of frustration. We had a board member quit out of frustration. Our past chairman said many members quit out of frustration. We had to ask why are they quitting out of frustration? And it's these basic things like, you know, lack of communication or how they learn the process of our local government. So I leave on a positive note tonight, so man, I thank you very much for this.
Well, we thank you for your time. If there's nothing else, council, we'll move on. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, City Council.
Discussion on oil inspection program. Councilmember Sullivan. Oh, I missed one. Discussion on crosswalk at First and Maple Street. That's still you.
I don't know who I'm talking to. Who am I talking to?
Tell us.
Well, I think there needs to be a crosswalk at the corner of First and Maple. We're putting in a 5-story hotel, which is gonna bring more traffic that way. You've got the Ramsdale, you've got Dairy Queen, you've got the library. There's too many kids in that intersection to not have a crosswalk. Because I see it on a daily basis.
A lighted walk, the walk.
Yes. I see it on a daily basis, going to and from, and the kids are standing there, not knowing when to cross. And I think it's an accident waiting to happen. And that's just my opinion, I don't know.
Yeah, I think it might benefit the council if Chief Glass weighed in on, I've asked him to look at the accident history that we've had at the intersection. And also Jeff McCullough, he's got some cost estimates on what that would transpire, or what would transpire and how much it would cost.
Yeah, good evening, thank you. I went back to 2004 at that intersection. We weren't able to find any incidents of a car versus pedestrian accident. So as far as data driven, I can't provide council with any information, data of a car versus pedestrian back to 2004.
How much does it cost?
We got current estimates from the city engineer that the total cost would be just under $80,000.
Under what?
Just under $80,000.
Okay.
So every 680?
So
79,000.
I was confused because when I brought it back in October, when I brought it up, it was 20,000, it was 30,000. Like I literally have an email from you. It's 20,000 or it's 30,000, and you have to put in the sidewalk ramps that are already there.
I'm not sure that doesn't sound like the same topic.
It's the crosswalk at First and Maple that we talked about in October. And let me see who.
There was a time when I was at the city and we had a citizen who wanted to pay for half.
Yes.
And I believe that the cost that was about 20 grand, he wanted to pay half. It came to us a couple times, right?
We pulled that out and it was $60,000.
And he was willing to pay half, but we couldn't justify the money then.
Well, the city couldn't justify its half, and then the donor, when it realized how expensive that was, said, well, I can't fund that either. So we've since updated those numbers based on this discussion, and to put all the wiring in, to put those, all the hardware and stuff, and to attach, or put it through the signal in the box, the cost estimate's $79,000.
I don't even understand that when we talked about it in October. Mike, Sean, you were all in on this email that it was either $20,000 or $30,000 from the estimate that you got. It was $13,000 to put in the sidewalk ramps that are already there.
I'm not sure what that's referring to.
Was those sidewalk that come off after you did that project?
The sidewalk,
Yeah,
ramps
that's
are
what
meant
I
to be
told you,
replaced.
that's what we have. So we did an estimate, it was, 2 years ago?
No, because
We did
I
an estimate 5 years ago.
think
That's where you-
Councilman Bachman was
Yeah,
the
so we did that estimate, it was 57, and what's important to note is it does include the approaches, the indicators. So when you do a crosswalk and a pedestrian signal, nobody lets you just put the, I'm sorry. You need to basically do the full work in the intersection. So if you allow somebody to, walk across the street, they need to leave an indicator area, for ADA, and then receive on the other side, receive an ADA area. So we do have, of that estimate, about a third of it, 25% to a third of it is sidewalks and curbs.
But it's
So-
already there. You already have the ramp, you're talking about so like a something, a wheelchair or a walker.
Yeah, but they don't meet the current standards. Yeah, the detectable warnings, like the bumps and all those items, the slopes of them, they're very particular in the slopes you have to do. So when you invest in them, you're basically doing the intersection. But regardless, even if we didn't do those at all, still 3/4 of that estimate is for the electricals, for the signs, it's for all the pedestals, all that is still in the $60,000 range. So it's, a big chunk of it is mostly the signs. And they're expensive.
But isn't it better to be proactive, putting in a huge hotel than waiting for somebody, because nobody's been hit yet, waiting for somebody to get hit by a car and you get sued? I mean,
Yeah, I can't speak to, I'm just saying the cost of it is, that's the cost. So it's one of those decisions you have to weigh out, you know, it's an expensive item, and how you weigh that out, I guess that's something that's what we're talking about tonight.
Are you suggesting we amend the budget this year and put it in this year? Is that what you're suggesting?
well, no, but we have with the ARP funds,
Right.
why can't we use what we were gonna give, like, to the DDA and put that towards that?
I don't know whether we can or not. We've got, the way I read the guidance we have right now, it probably would not be an allowable expense.
It seems like worst case scenario that we should have the DPW put that in the capital improvement budget for next year if we vote on it as a council. They could put it in, that's what we do every year, we build that capital improvement project based on what we have. And you probably could even ask the revenue sharing board for a piece of it if you wanted to. I mean, it's a public safety issue. This is probably would have been better off going back in January. You probably did back before I got on council. They could have put it in the capital improvement budget this year and talked about it, but that's where it belongs, is in the capital improvement budget.
I think it's needed. I think with that hotel coming in, it's gonna be a lot of traffic in that intersection. It's
There will
just
be,
a matter of time.
But the capital improvement budget will be done again before the hotel goes in, if it goes in anyway.
To me, the most dangerous is between Catholic Central and First Street. Try crossing US 31 anywhere between First, the light there, and Catholic Central. You put your life in your hands every time you go across there. You've got blind curves, and you've got traffic that's going 40 miles an hour or better.
That's not our, we don't control.
I know, no, I'm just saying,
I
it's
understand that.
from a safety standpoint, I would prefer putting another crosswalk somewhere between that. That's a long way. If I want to go to a safe place to cross, I have to go 9 blocks in one direction.
I watch the students try to cross from MCC to Family Fair Day.
Exactly,
Right.
or from the high school. Everyone who lives in Maxontown that goes to MHS has to cross at 9th Street.
Jim Gabrowski, the dog never crossed there, do you, Jim?
Yeah.
You go the other way, right, for safety reasons?
I understand that, but you're
So-
putting in a 5-story hotel and you're gonna wanna draw business down to the water, like, that's gonna be a lot of traffic. And there's kids from Dairy Queen, there's kids at the library, there's kids here for dance classes and recitals.
Yep. But at least you have a light. At least there is a light there. You have nothing between you and the bumper of a car except your.
Could you apply for the revenue sharing board for that, the tribes?
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't the council stand in the capital improvement budget have access to some of the money for the oil and gas that we kind of, a little bit, the council has a little more say in how the money?
Well, I don't know that they have any more say, it's just that there's a spending rule on how much that can be taken out.
There is, but doesn't the council typically drive a project or two from that funding rather than just leaving it to the departments to bring us? I know it has in the past, that's not the case anymore.
No, it's not since I've been here.
Okay, well, I would suggest that we should put the capital improvement budget next year and see how it plays out.
I think that's a great suggestion.
Anybody disagree with that?
No.
Any other discussion?
Jermaine, you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Hearing none, we'll move on to Councilmember Sullivan again on rental inspection.
Okay, so the building permits, I don't even know where to begin. I have an issue with, we have around 1,100 rentals, and it's already June, and last month only 36 were done. And so when we spoke, at the last meeting about the permits. I was under the impression that it was $200 for a permit, but that's not the case. It's $200 plus an application fee, plus a, I don't know, like a re-inspect fee or a
Revisit fee.
Yeah, so my concern is that you're spending too much time wanting people to get these permits and not enough time on these rental inspections, because there is no possible way in the next 6 months you can get through another 300 rental inspections. It's not possible. So I don't understand. Basically, I don't think this is gonna work. Like, I think that we need to look at other options of getting the rental inspections done. I'm for, you know, if they've got a good rental history, or if they've got a good inspection, they go every 3 years. But if they don't, they've got to get it inspected every year. But I just, at this rate, it's never going to get done, so they don't have to worry about, you know, 3-year inspections, because it'll be 5 by the time we get to the first set of it.
Well, I've talked to the building official, and he can bring in, I think he said, an additional 4 people to work.
But why hasn't that already been done? It's 6 months into the year already.
That's where we're at. I'm just saying, we
I
talked
think
about that.
this whole company is a problem. I think they're more fixated on the rental permits, or the permits, building permits, than the rental inspections.
Well, I wouldn't go quite that far.
How can you not, when they've only done 36?
Well, we're talking a couple of different things. We're talking building permits, and we're talking rental inspections.
Yeah, rental inspections, they only did 36.
Yes, I know, but, so, we gotta focus on one. If they've only done 36, and I told them that, you know, last year, until things, we saw where it was gonna go with COVID, you know, they didn't wanna go into homes, and a lot of tenants didn't want outsiders in because of the situation. So they purposely held off until the environment was better for doing those inspections. And now that, you know, we have a little bit more latitude of going around without masks, and there's more vaccination, that was a conscious decision. Do what you can, where you can, when you can, and then we'll ramp it up when we have more latitude. We're at that point, and that's why I had the discussion with the building official about the ability to bring in additional people to ramp up the efforts.
Well, I had that concern a month ago, so they should have brought in 4 people a month ago.
Well, it's just, I don't know, I don't know the timing, but when we were relaxed on how, you know, with wearing masks and different things like that. I don't know if it was a month ago or 2 weeks ago, I had lost track.
Okay.
He's standing behind you. Waiting to speak.
I'm Steve Hogan, building official and the rental inspector. I don't know where the information you're getting for only 36 rental inspections, but we've done more than that. And in the ordinance, it states that the people that own the rental houses are to communicate with us and to pull the permits for doing that, or to pay for the inspections upon that. The inspection fee is $90, and the registration fee is $40, so it's $130 for each unit. So the second inspection fee, if there is one, is $70. So I don't know where the $200 is coming from.
I'm talking about the building permits.
Well, building permits, I go on the value of the properties that are doing it. The only thing we're doing with building permits, roofing permits may be $200, and that includes 2 inspections. And siding permits, window permits, and stuff like that, which are all required in the code.
But it's not $200, isn't it? Don't you have to pay an application fee?
No, it's $200, straight flat $200.
So if somebody wants to renovate their whole house, they can pay $200?
That goes by the construction value.
Okay. I must have been just delirious the last meeting, because you're the one that told me that you had 36 rental inspections that you did, and then we were discussing the permits. So because I asked you, if it's $200 for a window, $200 for a toilet, $200 for a roof, and you said no, you can get a permit for the whole entire house.
Yes, for siding and windows and stuff like that. If they're doing a complete remodel of the house, it goes on the construction value, square footage of the house. So it could run anywhere between $200 to $500 or $600, depending on the size of the house that they're renovating. And that's the exact same permit fees that the state charged.
Okay,
It's
so,
the exact same way the state charges their fees, is the same fee schedule that we use here in the city of Manistee. So the fees have not changed one iota from when the state did it. The only difference is that you guys get a 20% kickback from that, from the fees, where the state gave you nothing.
okay, so to date, how many rental inspections have you completed?
I'd have to turn my computer on to tell you exactly how many I've done.
Okay, because I
But
just,
it's more than 36. It's the responsibility of the owners to contact us. It's in your ordinance that they are to contact us. It's their responsibility. And I have done every inspection. I've got maybe 2 new ones that just came in. I've done every inspection that has been brought to me from them. Now, we have letters that can go out and that we're gonna start sending out that we have not sent out to this point because Spicer Group was a whole year behind because of the COVID thing. So we took it over, they were behind the whole session of area in Manistee. So we're just trying to catch up from that at this point. And it's not Spicer Group's fault. You know, it's nobody's fault that we had COVID. So they quit inspecting them. So we're waiting for them homeowners to contact us with fees, and they're slowly getting back into doing that with us. But there's no problems in doing inspections. I haven't had any problems with the inspections and doing them. The problem is getting the things fixed that need to be fixed because there's multiple issues with buildings in this city, in the rental program.
okay, I would really like to know how many inspections have been done so far to date.
Steve, if you can just email me that tomorrow or Thursday, I'll get out.
Sure. I mean, if you want me to do that, I can open up my computer right now and give you a general idea.
Yeah, because I obviously was on another planet last meeting, because you literally said we've done 36, and I said, how are you gonna get through 300 and something to get to the next cycle and do it again?
Yeah, that's not, it's not a problem. That's not going to be an issue, really. It's getting the owners to submit us the documents necessary to be able to do that.
So you'll give me all that information to Mr. Taylor?
Yes, I did that, yes.
Okay, we'll get that done.
I would also like a copy of the schedule of the fees and permits, because that's public knowledge, right?
For,
You said there's certain fees.
for the rental properties or for the
Permits.
building permits? Yes, I can do that. Yep.
I have a thought, if I could share.
Sure.
What if we consider a self-reporting process, say for instance, we have Dennis here, you get an apartment that needs to be inspected. Say you gave Dennis the list, and you ask Dennis to self-report and provide photographs, and Dennis says, I am in compliance with all of this stuff, and I meet my inspection, and you ask him, and you ask his tenant to sign off on it, that they agree that this is up to code, could we somehow make that acceptable and make,
Inherently, that doesn't work.
well, I think maybe if you spot check and double, and trust but verify on a few randomly, but I would suggest that I personally would trust Dennis to do that correctly and honestly. And I know there'd probably be something we probably flush the system, but if you had a landlord that you knew that inherently have excellent inspection records, is that even a possibility? I don't know if it's a possibility or not, but I can see how that would speed the process up.
Well, I'm not saying that once we get through a full cycle with everything, after being in every house, because I take photographs of every house I'm in, of the yard and everything, also to look at blight issues and things like that. So I have photos of every building I've been in thus far that I do for future reference. There's a few that I've been in that are very nice, and they pass. One of the biggest problems I'm having right now in houses is updated CO detectors and smoke detectors. And those, what I have them do is show them which ones need to be replaced, and then have them send me photos of the smoke detector and proof of purchase for them, and then I give them the certificate after that. Once they've done that. So I don't have to go back again, I'm not charging them another fee to go back and look, it's just the initial fee. So I'm working with almost all these rental inspection houses that are, at this point. I've got a rental inspection that I did 4 apartments in, and they have to put smoke detectors and CO detectors in every one of them. None of them were compliant. So he asked me what he had to do, and I walked him through what he needed to do. So that one I need to re-inspect because there was other issues too that wasn't the landlord, it was the people that were renting. So I have different things here that we go over, and I have what I put together for that, if you'd like to have a copy of each of that, so that you can see exactly what I'm doing. And it's a learning experience for many of the renters and rental property owners in the city right now. So this is my, right here, they have problems. And I've got it set up so that it's a teaching tool for them to learn so that they can learn, and then the next sessions that we go through may be a lot easier.
How many times do you ask someone to do something before you do something? You ask them 5 times, 6 times, what's your process? If you say you gotta get your smoke detectors in, how many times do you go to them before you gotta take action?
I only ask them once.
Pardon me?
I only ask them once. I haven't had any problems with anybody that hasn't followed through with what they need to do.
And you don't have the ability to write a ticket yourself, correct?
Yes, I did.
You do have the ability to write a ticket?
Yes.
And how many tickets have you written?
I haven't written any in this city right now.
Anything else, council?
How do you think we get around to spending that COVID money? We're gonna talk about a full-time blight officer for about 3 years to start kickstarting some of this stuff. We start talking about that COVID money coming, we need to have that discussion when it comes around. So they help him out, help us out, help the chief out. So.
Well, I think part of the rental inspection is to take some of the blight off of the officers, but it can't be done with one person.
I agree completely. That's why I think that at some point, I mean, talking about we have this extra money. we need
Well,
to-
no, he has extra people. He needs to bring extra people on board and get these inspections done and blight these houses that
As a
have been
written
sitting
single
here
ticket,
for
as a
a
written single
decade.
ticket.
Yes, that's a problem.
Excuse me. In the ordinance, it says that it's right in your ordinance that the people have to contact us, fill out the paperwork, get it to us for us to do the inspections. If that's not happening, then what we do, and because of the COVID, it's backwards, and we're just getting to a point where we're gonna start issuing the letters and sending them out so that the people know that, okay, they're up, they need to be done.
Well, I can guarantee you that the people that are running the dump houses that are gonna be blighted are not gonna contact you and be like, hey, can you come inspect my property? Like,
Well,
that's not gonna happen.
Well, I wouldn't say that,
Yeah.
because I've been in some pretty bad ones.
Yeah, they wouldn't, but they're not gonna, hey, come give me a ticket, cite me for blight. I think that you need to bring whoever you have on board to help you to do that, because at the rate we're going, nothing's gonna get done, nothing's gonna change, and the officers are still gonna have to keep dealing with blight on a daily basis when a majority of it can be taken care of just by doing these inspections.
Well, I will say one thing, that having the officers doing what they're doing and issuing the citations they have lately has brought people to talk to me at this point, more in the city in dealing with some of these houses. So I've been in and talked to several of them that have citations issued at this point, which is one of the things that we need to follow through with and do, because if they don't get into our system, they're not gonna fix that blight. But permits, that's what permits do. They make these houses so that they're livable for people.
I understand that, but if you have people that can help you, why do you not have them helping you?
It's a matter of right now, I'm not getting enough inspections to me to have to bring anybody in to do it. It's a matter of once we start sending out letters,
When are you gonna send the letters out?
we've been waiting for this COVID to get beyond what's going on. And that's where we're working at.
Okay, so they should probably go out this week then, since I think, what, July 1st?
Are we past the COVID excuse for?
Yeah, I mean, it can only go so far, like,
I do not disagree, but I'm not the one that, made the COVID mess or any of
But
this
you can
stuff.
still send out a letter, because not everybody's gonna be like, oh, it's COVID, you can't come in my house, like, not every person's gonna be like that. So wouldn't it be more proactive to start sending them out and getting these people?
Yes, and that's where we're at that point right now.
So they are gonna come out, like, and,
Where the governor has just opened things up this month to be able to start doing this.
okay, well, I feel like the letters should have went out this month then. I mean, if they're not even ready to go, then
They are.
already behind it. Then
They
send them
are.
out. Like, I don't know how to say it, I'm just trying to be so nice right now. I don't know how to say it any differently, like, you need help, you need to get through these.
They are ready to go, because all we have to do is, it's all in a computer program. All we have to do is highlight it and send it out.
They'll be signed on a little later than early next week.
Okay.
Right.
I do have to make a comment, but my comment is this: I've been very worried ever since we've started to have these conversations about the inspections, and we've heard from lots of landlords. What concerns me is there's no vehicle set in place for people who are renters, who are living in an unlivable situation with blighted properties, and they're not getting any action. I really think we have to have some way that the renters can communicate with the city that, you know, without retaliation from their landlords, that this is the problem that's in their living condition, their home. So I've been thinking about that a lot, and I think probably tonight we're gonna, you know, we could probably spend an hour or so on it. I probably don't want to waste that much of everybody's time, but I think it's something we need to really consider doing on behalf of our citizens. They live here, they work here, they might not make a lot of money, and they're living in a rental property that is substandard.
And I already knew that.
There are very specific laws that protect renters. They don't even have to pay rent. If they report it to their landlord and they don't fix it, there's law protecting. They don't have to pay rent, and there's laws that says hold the landlord accountable in those situations. Maybe that law needs to be changed where, but clearly that should be on our website. If you have a complaint about your landlord, you don't make that complaint. Maybe it should be on the website somewhere. Maybe it already is. I don't know. I've looked at it.
Is it all right if I bring this up and hand each one?
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
We don't need to create new laws here.
We need to make it easier for our citizens to be able to feel comfortable to talk about something.
There are definitely laws that protect tenants. The trouble is, I hear what you're saying,
This
tenants
here-
don't know what they are.
This here is the law. I'm passing now. That's the law that we're under. And,
Now, you give that to tenants? when
yes,
you-
I do. And you'll see, and I'll go through it with you in just a real quick sentence here. This is the list that we look at for things that we're at. And if you could, yes, I've got one for you. You want one too, Peg? Mhm, you're welcome. Okay. So real quick, I'm just gonna go over. I got just one for you. If you want to look at this and you open up, you see the first page, it has different things on it with a view. open up on the back of the first page, the second page, you'll go down about 3/4 of the way, and you'll see different things in color, red, blue, and orange. There are the red items under all of these, and what I do is I go through each one of these, which is the law that we're under. And the red is the owner's responsibility, the blue is the renter's responsibility, and the orange is the time that they have to have it fixed by. So this is goes over everything that has to do with what has to happen in rental inspections and rental houses. And the reason I did this was so it was a learning experience for the renters, the homeowners, and how the city is running that. So each one of those that you see in this section is covered under that, and whatever the violation is either done in red or blue, which makes it the responsibility of the homeowner to take care of or the renter to take care of. And then they're given a date, they get that taken care of. I doubt you'll find a document of this much in any other jurisdiction, because I knew it was going to be a learning experience here after looking at some of the rental inspectors that I've been in houses.
Any other questions?
I think this is good, I just think that you need help to get it done. There's no possible way to get through this.
Well, once we get to that point where we have more inspections than I can handle, it's not a problem bringing people in to do what we need to do.
So once you send the letters out,
Right.
you're assuming you're going to get a lot more applications, and at that point, you'll
Yes.
call in, so you'll call people in to take care of the needs.
Yes, correct. We have that ability.
Does this document give you the authority to write violations? Does it talk about violations in this document?
Yes, it does. I can also write violations. I can also issue tickets under the
It's in this document that the people see?
building code,
Okay.
and that's under Public Act 230.
Thank you.
Anything else?
I'm more than happy, if anyone wants to call me anytime, I'm more than happy to sit down with you, go over any question you have one-on-one, if that helps you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
We'll move on to Pro Tem Szymanski, discussion on building permits.
So this is more of a question for the city. Does the city council have the authority to determine what items we would or would not want to have a permit issued for us?
I don't believe so.
We can't supersede city law, state law.
Okay, but the rest of the rest of the county is not requiring what we're requiring, so I can't get past that. Why is it that the county of Manistee is not asking or requiring for permits to replace individual windows or siding, and we are?
You know, it's going to be based on the inspector. You know, I know a lot of the state inspectors, they don't have enough time to get to everything, and so they just don't require something.
Well, that's my point is, obviously, there's some kind of a disconnect. Because you have, like I said, in our county, you have every other municipality other than the city of Manistee is not requiring an inspection for those items, and we are. So are they all wrong and they're breaking the law and we're the only upright? Or is it something that council can make a choice over? And again, I'm just trying to get practical. There are a lot of people who don't replace every window in their house because they can't afford it. They replace a couple windows at a time. And this requires an inspection every time. So this year I'm going to replace the two in front. I have an inspection fee that in some cases equal to the cost of the window. The same thing, do-it-yourselfers who decide that I'm going to put a water-efficient toilet in my house. I know how to do it. All I have to do is disconnect A, B, and put a seal on. If I screw up, it's my house I'm damaging, but yet I need a permit. Those are the kind of things that just, to me, don't pass the common sense test, that you're basically allowing do-it-yourselfers to efficiently and cost-effectively do minor repairs on their homes. And again, for years and years, there wasn't any issue with doing that kind of work. And even siding, I can pay somebody to paint my house and there's no inspection required. But if I want to put vinyl siding on top of it, I have to pay for an inspection. I have to buy a permit. So some things just, to me, just aren't making sense. And I just want to figure it out. Is it an all or nothing? Is everyone required to do this and we're the only oddball in? Or is it something that we have some flexibility to be able to determine, if nothing else, at least the fees?
We can't supersede state law. We can't just turn our back on the state law, which is, that code is state law. Now, you know, the people that I've talked to that are in the industry, they say probably about 65, maybe 70% of communities across the state enforce the code as it should be enforced. And there's maybe 30% that don't. That's just the way it is, you know. To me, I think, you know, when your example, are we right and everybody's wrong? I think we're right in enforcing the code, and everybody else is not enforcing the code and picking and choosing what they want to do, which I don't think is legal.
But didn't you just say it was up to the inspector whether he was?
No, I said where you get into problems is
No.
that it's how some inspectors interpret the code. And that's what gets in trouble, and that's why when they have, I can't remember the term, but they ordinary, and I can't remember the other term, but the information presented previously on this discussion, they have a definition of ordinary right out of the dictionary. This is what ordinary means. Is the other one maintenance, Steve?
I've got a handout for that, just
Yeah.
thing too.
So they,
If you'd like it, it talks about repairs and ordinary repairs. If you look at and the Michigan Building Code, the Residential Code, and the Rehab Code are all talked about in this. And it shows what it is. Now, each one of them codes has what is not required for a permit. And that's why that is in there. Because the code, it's easier for the code to tell you what is not required for a permit than it is to tell you what is required for a permit. So if you take like ordinary repairs, there again, it's ordinary. So what is an ordinary repair? Well, here is one thing, like in the electrical part, you can replace your light bulbs, that's an ordinary repair, or you can make a connection, you can plug something in to an approved electrical equipment. That's an ordinary repair for the electrical. So if you equate that to siding or roofing or anything like that, sure, we have storms, it takes off some siding and stuff like that. That pieces of siding that are coming off and need to be replaced and they're just doing pieces of it, that's ordinary.
But wouldn't a window be an ordinary repair? If I have a broken window, I know we're still on the window thing, but you're gonna give me a ticket because I'm not gonna pull a permit to fix one window in my own home, like.
I have not ever issued a ticket for someone that replaced a window or something, I came by and found that they did it later. It's just, I can't police that kind of, in a city of this size. It's impossible for me to find everybody's, if I see a toilet sitting outside a house, it's a pretty good indication that they probably replaced it, but I don't stop and knock on their door and say, hey, you got to get a permit for it. Because I just don't have that amount of time to spend on it.
Okay, so I have a question. If you go into, I'm sorry, I'm going back to this rental thing. But if you go into a house and it needs, one window's broken, you got a cracked toilet, and you need that stuff repaired, you're gonna have them pull a permit
No,
to fix that?
no, they're not, that's not fixing glass in a window. If you just fixing the glass, that's ordinary repair. You got a broken glass at your chain, putting that in, that's just an ordinary repair. I don't make you pull a permit for that. You know how many rental houses I've been in that has had water heaters changed, furnaces changed, other things done in them with no permits? Since I've been here, if they've done it within a month or so of the time frame for us, then yes, I'm making full permit, but some of them are back from 2019, 2018, 2015, where the permits were never, that's a safety issue. You know how many people are killed by carbon monoxide? Well, we got one lawsuit going right now in the city on that very thing in the rental unit. I don't know how it's gonna hammer out or anything like that at this point. But it was a house that was not in the rental program, it is in the rental program now. And it had a cracked heat exchanger in the furnace. The family was lucky that it didn't, have worse problems than it did.
Anything else, Mr. Smansky?
No, that's it. I'm gonna have to.
I'll just add that
I'm sorry, Mayor
Go ahead.
Zelinski, I'd
Go
like
ahead.
to just jump in a little bit and make something clear to the public, since it's a public meeting. One of the things that I've learned, because I'm going to be doing some stuff in my house, is that I, as the homeowner, can fill out the permit. If I need people to help me remodel my bathroom, like take out the toilet, or take out, the shower, I can do that because I filled out the permit. So there's still room for the people who want to do it themselves or get a little help to do it, so long as the homeowner is filling out the permit. That's the way I understand it from public.
That's correct.
Okay.
So would you like to have this? If you could, yes, thanks. I changed it. And that talks about repair and ordinary repair of the major codes.
I just want to share with you something that I'm doing some construction work on a property in another county.
Mm-hmm.
And when I talked with their inspection department, or the building department, I thought maybe that you were working over there too. Because I'm hearing this, what I'm trying to say is I'm hearing the same thing from them that I'm hearing from you. If I replace my toilet, I need a permit.
Correct.
I also just wondered, have you had any instances where people did not get a permit and there's been a problem like with insurance? What if you replace a window when it leaks and causes damage? Do you know of any instances, a situation where insurance might not have covered it because there wasn't a permit pulled?
No. I'm not aware of any.
Anybody else?
The code is a complicated issue, and I understand where you're coming from, and it's very difficult, and it boils down to, and I hate to have to say this, but it boils down to the state is supposed to do oversight on all departments within the state, and they don't do it. They're more worried about their bottom line, their money, than making everyone in the state, and they've just run some new laws right now that even us as code officials, a state inspector, if they find that we were on a site and didn't do something, they can give us a citation for not doing our job. That's the kind of thing the state's doing, and they need to have more oversight on what's going on, because they are the ones who do the oversight on us. So they tell us we have to do what we have to do. It's up to the jurisdiction to do what the code requires. So that's what we do. And, because the state doesn't do it, I've had multiple issues with the state over the last little while on projects right here in the city. A good one is Joslyn Cove. They had permits issued there that were not valid to a builder for 2 years. And I finally got the state back out of it, and we issued the permits. And we gave a concession to the builder because of all the stuff he's been through to get them permits over to us to get the proper inspections done on that structure, because some of those units down there in the townhouses have violations in them right now, and I found that when I first came here. So the state finally backed out of it when I put stop work, 1 day notices on for stop work, or the state backed out of it and said, no, they don't have the jurisdiction. So we got that taken care of with that contractor, and that contractor's now working with us on getting those units done.
Anything else on this subject, council, today? Hearing none, we'll move on to others.
I do, Mayor. It's a good segue, given all the conversations we've had tonight. We live in a tourist town, and in the past, we've had this discussion, got direction from council years ago, but not this council. Campers and boats. We invite people here for the summer. We have people that camp. We have people that boat. They go fishing. The current law, apparently, says you can't leave your camper or your boat on your own property if it's licensed and insured for more than 20 days. It's subject to a ticket. I find that silly. My own personal experience is, I live in a very nice home, and I have a camper. I brought my camper home to go on a camping trip. It was there for maybe 5, 6, 7, 10 days, and the police chief came by my house to tell me that it was blight, in violation of zoning, and I couldn't keep my camper there anymore. We talked about it, I moved it. I stored it in the winter, but I have to bring my camper home in order to go camping and charge it and put food in it and my stuff. I actually brought it home today, and about 20 minutes after I brought it home, a patrol car drove down my street, and then the chief drove down my street. I thought, for crying out loud, did they just call the chief to come give me a ticket for blight for bringing my camper home? I don't know how we could have a vacation town and have an issue with that. I think we need to embrace people bringing their salmon boat here and parking in their driveway when they're at their vacation home. Many of you probably, many people in this room have boats and campers and trailers that by law you can't have in your driveway for more than 21 days. The issue that came up last year was the chief had asked the guys to do blight, and they said, how can we do blight when Dave Bachman had the camper park at his house? They were using me as an excuse not to enforce blight. So he asked me to move my camper, which I did. But I think that we as a city council need to understand, or need to tell the chief, I hope we would tell the chief, that during the summer, we need to expect campers to be here in boats and fishing boats. And I don't think it's an issue we need to spend our time sending police to because someone's got a boat in their driveway for 20 days, or a camper parked on the street. So I guess I'd like the council to tell me what your expectation is. Maybe we need to ask the chief what his expectation is, what he thinks he should be doing or would like to be doing, where his time should be spent in.
I think the problem is that it's okay to have one, a camper or a boat in your driveway, but when you have people that, like the house over on 2nd Street, he's got 8 boats and campers and trailers, then it becomes a problem.
But I'm guessing that they're not licensed and insured.
Right, so then it becomes a problem.
Absolutely. If they're not licensed and insured, I think it's absolutely a problem. That's the same with a car. If you have a second or
Even if
third
it is
car.
licensed and insured,
Pardon me?
you're storing it for somebody. Nobody uses 4 campers, 6 boats, and 2
Yeah, and if you're storing it for somebody, that's against.
Yeah.
You got to pay to get your storage facility. But Joe homeowner, you have a camper at your house or parked on the street, is not bothering a soul, shouldn't generate police attention, at least during the summer. And then clearly when we get to alternate parking, it's an issue right away. That's self-evident. But I think from May through September, October, we need to expect that people are going to bring their fishing boats here and their campers and their. I can think of half a dozen at least campers that are in people's yards that are hooked up and people are spending the summer in a camper to get their entertaining guests. I think it's great. And in the past, when I've had that discussion as a police chief, the city council said, leave it be. It's not an issue that we need to worry about because we want people to come here. So,
Mr. Taylor, could we have that on a work session, and could you maybe come back with some suggestions on how we might rework that ordinance to accommodate. Anybody, council have any objections with that?
I don't have any, but I would like to at least comment on Dave Bachman's comments. I think it kind of depends on where you are in the city. I mean, there's some very narrow streets in my neighborhood where if you put a camper on there.
I think he said in the driveway, like not on the street, like.
Well, mine's on the street, but it's not,
It's on the street,
we have,
seems to be a bigger problem than in your driveway.
but I think those individuals, if you're blocking, you can't get a fire truck down the street, and it's not legal parking, whole different scenario. You're absolutely correct, because there are places where you can't do that.
That's where I would see the differences.
And that's gonna be the problem, is, all right, if I own a home on Third Street, I can't park my RV in front. You own a home on Broad Street and you can't.
Why can't you park on First Street?
On Third Street, because literally you put that trailer on there and you can't get around. I mean, the street is that narrow, right? Fourth Street, I'm sorry, Fourth Street. Fourth Street is, like I said, it's 2 lanes, period. If you get anything wider than that, if there's a plow truck, you can't put it.
Why should
But
my neighbor be penalized because your street's narrow?
Well, but you get my point. It is,
I think it's
there's
situational.
going to be issues because you can't, it's not a one-size-fits-all. Or I have, a camper that is, 65 years old, it's faded, dilapidating, it's still licensed, right? But it just looks horrible. And I've got it parked in front of my house, in front of the neighbor's house, on the public street. Not in front of my house, God forbid, I don't want to ruin my view. So I park two houses down and park my trailer. That's the challenge. Now, I get your point, and I think there's some flexibility that needs to be in, but there's also some secondary issues that we have to be concerned with. Same thing, parking in your driveway, and how much of your car or trailer goes over the sidewalk, so you can't get by.
None goes over the sidewalk legally.
Legally, but
Legally.
I get it, but it's
Not
not
issue we
hard.
may talk about, because if it's over the sidewalk, it gets a ticket.
Right, it's not hard to find, and again, there is, like I said, it's not gonna be as easy as just say, well, yeah, we'll ignore it for the.
Alaska, there was a fire truck parked in the city, in the city. It took me 15 years to get that truck moved.
Oh, the one on
But they got my camper, buddy. We got it today. We were out.
That's what I'm saying. I think there needs to be some flexibility to our policy, but I'm not sure that I want to just eliminate it.
What I think Dave is referring to is when he puts it in his yard, I don't see a problem with that. I made the previous chiefs move their boats.
I don't see any issue with anybody having a licensed and insured boat in their driveway
Right.
at all. I think if they're, like your man said, you got 8 of them, you're running as a storage unit, that's wrong. And if they're not licensed and insured, just like a car, they should get a sticker and they should get towed. But I think the chief has a boat, and I doubt he'd like that he had to move the darn thing every 20 days to get a chance to go fishing. But I bet he does, because he understands what the rules are, and I expect he follows the rules. But, Josh, you have an opinion on what we should or shouldn't be doing with these things? Should we make some exceptions or common sense rules here?
Yeah, I think there's a path there. I mean, I had the privilege of working with Zach Somsel and diving into zoning. And I'll be honest with you, it was hard for me to fathom. I didn't realize how deep it was and breaking the plan of the residents and getting the side yard, the corner lot. Anyways, my concern as the police chief is safety. So if we've got something that we can't see around, or we've got something blocking a sidewalk, that's where we're kind of at. Our officers really can't dive real deep into, it's not breaking the plan of the house, or we just don't simply have the manpower. I think what I'm hearing is, I think I can work with Zach and create some language or bring some language to council as far as changing the expectations and finding a little bit better path. I mean, I agree with Councilman Bachman. This is a northern Michigan, Lake Michigan town. And during the summertime, people have boats and the driveways, and every 21 days you gotta move it, and it doesn't make sense. It's hard to understand that. It's very
I do
difficult.
get complaints from people on the north side about other neighbors who are parking in their front yards.
Yeah.
They're parking their cars in their front yards, and they think it looks blighted to them. They don't move, or, they're very irritated because to them, it just doesn't look right. So I don't know where that falls in our ordinances. And I would like some clarification.
We have an ordinance that we voted on that says you can't park a semi, tractor, or trailer on the street in the city in a residential area. However, the city council said the police chief or the police can't enforce that unless a citizen complains, which is just, it was absurd to me at the time, it's absurd to me today. So if someone comes along and parks a semi on Spruce Street, unless it's against the law, but the chief can't write a ticket to it unless someone calls and complains. We have some things that just need to be, they need to be tempered with common sense. And I think the chief has exactly the process of if they're blocking the plane, if they're unsafe, if they can't get a truck down the road, they should generate some attention, but I don't know that, just to use chief as an example, his boat in his driveway, there's no sidewalk. Shouldn't bother a soul anywhere, or the guy on Broad Street who comes up once a month, he's got his salmon boat parked in his driveway. I don't think that should generate a drop of interest from anybody.
Again, it's the parking on people's front lawns, that seems to generate the complaints that I hear.
Illegally, you can park on your front lawn between your house and the sidewalk. You don't have sidewalks,
I don't
right?
have sidewalks.
You don't have sidewalks, so you can legally park on your front lawn if you're licensed and insured. That's how I remember the parking lot, right?
It's a pretty deep zoning statute, so,
Yeah.
yeah. And to be honest with you, it's something that really hasn't been enforced by the letter in, I don't know, 20-some years. So when you go from that to all of a sudden, we're making it a priority, it's been met with a lot of friction. Because the expectation from the public, it's all different, so. I
Let's
think-
get it on a work session.
Yep.
Let's come up with some,
Duly noted.
So would you like me to work and bring some language to the council, or?
Mr. Taylor will get it.
That's fine.
Anything else?
I just want to publicly thank Kelly Greavy for all of her hard work on Manistee Proud. And I understand Spicer was out there helping you last weekend or something to clean up. I think that's great. I know it's getting a little touchy between the DPW and the volunteer work that's happening. And I would just encourage you guys to work with the volunteers and not discourage them so that we can keep it going. I love the spirit of it. And I'm willing to help on weekends. So,
In-person meetings are much more productive too, by the way. Much more productive than Zoom.
yes.
If there's nothing else, I'm going to adjourn. We're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.